Welcome to Digging Deeper with Pastor Kyle, Pastor Nigel. We are excited to talk to you today about what we went through yesterday. We focused in on Psalm 139, verses 23 and 24. And so to start us out, let me kind of give a synopsis of where we've been in Psalm 139. And then I'll read through verses 23 and 24, and then we'll discuss. So,
good plan.
So with this psalm, David starts out, and he says, "You have searched me, you know me." God knows everything. He's omnipotent. He is omnipotent, but he's omniscient. He knows all things. And then it goes on, and he's omnipresent. Where shall I go from your spirit? Mm-hmm. Everywhere that exists, God is present in. And then it goes on and says, "You form my inward parts. You were intimately involved in my creation. I'm not just an accident. You knew me even as you created me." Yeah. And then he talks about how precious are your thoughts and how vast the sum of them is. And then he goes into this conversation talking about how he hates the wicked and how he hates those that hate God. But then he moves into verse 23 and 24. And he says this. He says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. And see if there be any grievous way in me. And lead me in the way everlasting." And so right there in those two verses, yesterday you were talking about there being kind of three movements to it. So one would be search me, two would be convict me, and three would be lead me.
Yes.
And you gave us a grimace right there already. And just like that's...
It's because I believe it. So I'm like,
Yeah. You one of the things you said in the sermon was that it's a tough one. It's a tough passage. Now, why did you say that? And why did you just grimace here?
Well, yeah. So we kind of started with that. It's a tough passage, and I said I think it's the toughest part of this psalm, and it's not because of the theology
super hard to
contained in it, right? Like, oh, this is gonna melt my brain. Like, it's not this high, lofty idea. And it's not difficult to interpret. That may be the problem. Like, it's easy to understand it, and we just don't want to do it.
I know exactly what he's saying.
I know exactly what he's saying. Yeah. But what it challenges us to, it's the now that we've said all this. David went through this whole psalm. He starts out with an intimate picture. You know me, and then he goes out to an infinite picture. God, you are omnipotent. You are omniscient. You are omnipresent, and then he comes back down into the intimate again. So it goes intimate, infinite, intimate. So why it's so difficult is like I said, it's the application. It's the so what. It's the now we have to do this in light of the theology and the truths that we just saw. This is how we have to react. That's why it was difficult. And then the three reasons the three things he asks of played out.
A little painful.
Little painful.
Little painful. So let's go into the pain.
Let's do it.
Let's just dive right into that, all right?
Yeah.
So let's start out with this first one here. "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts." And you mentioned that thoughts there, this version has this note. It could be cares, it could be anxieties.
Yeah.
And so it's not just like, "Hey, God, know what I'm thinking."
Know what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
He has something very specific in mind. What is he thinking of?
Yeah. So he's one of the things we talked about was why we noticed that David's going back to the beginning of the psalm here. This is the same way he started. "Oh God, you have searched me and known me," and now he's saying, "Search me, O God, and know my heart, and know what makes me anxious." That word thoughts, cares, anxiety, and so we talked about how David's not giving God permission to do what God already has done. God didn't search him and then lose the file. And go, I got to go figure out what you're thinking again and what makes you up.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
I have it for you.
Got it for you right here.
That's not what David's
it's just
doing.
as horrible as it was. What this is when he says, "God, search me and know me," he's joining God in it. He's making himself vulnerable and agreeing that this is what's best for me. So we probably shouldn't look at it like a permission thing, but we need to look at it as David saying, "I know that you doing this is what's best for me. I'm not going to put up a fight. I'm in.
I'm in
I
agreement.
agree.
Yeah.
I'm a full participant of this. Lord, please do it. Search me and know me. Know what makes me anxious. Know all my thoughts.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, on one hand, we often think, man, I want to be known. I want somebody to know me. I want somebody to really.
But-
why doesn't anybody know me? I've heard that in youth ministry a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm all alone.
Yeah.
But then when you get
Yeah.
down into it and somebody actually starts to get to know you, I've seen over and over again in other people
yeah, totally.
Not so much of me.
Theoretically.
that when things get vulnerable,
Yeah.
and to really know, you have to be exposed, and you have to. That's part and parcel of being seen and being known is becoming vulnerable. And when that happens, there's terror
Yeah.
that comes into play.
We want to be known, but we want to be known on our terms.
Yeah.
And this far and only this far.
Yeah. Or
And-
maybe this version that I can
Right, yeah.
shift.
We
and
want to control.
make it look like this is who I am.
Yep, we want
You
to
can
control
know
the
that
narrative.
version. Yeah.
This version of me, I want to control the narrative as to what about me you know. And
Yeah.
and this leaves no room for that. So David's like, know it all. Search me, know me. Know what makes me anxious. Know my thoughts. Know my heart. Every little detail of it. He's asking God to do this in light of everything that he just looked at. So, or just said, yeah.
Yeah. Now let's talk about anxiety.
No, that's okay. Why would we? Nope. What else we got? Let's try. Psalm
Did you
Psalm
just have
143.
anxiety when I said that? Exactly.
Yeah, talk about
Exactly.
anxiety. That's good.
All right, so search me, O God, and know my heart. We're going full vulnerability. We're totally opening
There's an
up.
exclamation point on that.
Yeah, they threw that
Yeah.
in for us. Thank you, ESV.
Yeah.
Try me and know my thoughts.
Yeah.
Let's start with the end here, right?
Yeah.
The idea here is not just for God to go, oh, see it. Yeah, I see you're anxious, and I know that.
Mhm.
It's that he wants to dig in deep. He wants to unearth those things. He wants to expose them to the light, show them for what they are, and then he wants to eradicate the anxiousness from us. And usually you'd go, hey, I want to get rid of anxiety. But there's a problem there. You have the anxiety because you're holding on to something.
Yeah, like own that, man. It's
Yeah.
just true. Yeah, he says, try me and know what makes me anxious.
Yeah.
And the try me there, put me to the test. He's saying, put me to the test. Expose that. So he's asking God, I might be getting ahead of you, but asking
we're
God
good.
to put him into uncomfortable positions, into difficult spots, so that what makes him anxious comes out, so that it's exposed, so that it pops up. Yeah, so because those anxieties need to be removed. They need to be dealt with. And they're things that don't belong, and that's where we get into the like, oh, I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. And you got to ask God to put us into places where we don't want to be. It's the opposite of what we normally ask God of. We talked about that on Sunday too. David is starting to do some things that are very counterintuitive to what our flesh wants. And we say, God, take me away from all this stuff. Remove all these anxieties from me, and the things that make me nervous and are hard, get rid of those things. And David's going, no. Put me into that spot so that I can see what's in there that needs to be removed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've got so many different lines to go down.
Just pick a good one.
What? That's the problem. They're all good. So one of the lines with that is one of the things we talked about. I feel like sometimes we throw the word anxiety around for a bunch of different things that mean a whole wide range of stuff.
Yeah.
So if I walk around a corner, I see someone holding a gun, I could say I have anxiety, but I think this is talking about something a little bit different here.
Yeah.
You're going to have a natural reaction to physical safety.
Sure.
Number of different scenarios, right? There's lots of things that get your blood boiling, that get your heart rate up, and you have God-given natural physical reactions to those things.
Mhm.
But
That's not what we're talking about.
that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
What we're talking about is what your spirit does after that.
Yes.
What does your spirit do when you feel that way? When the blood pressure goes up, when you feel like, oh, this is something that's going to attack something that I love, or it's going to take away something that I want. then your spirit has an action.
This is so important.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So, I made a statement that I'm gonna stand on, and die behind, man.
Stand on it.
I said, why such an emphasis on anxiety? Because that's what that word means, and that's what this is kind of like. This is what leads us into it. So, I said, if faith is the evidence of things not seen, anxiety is the evidence of things not surrendered. And it is true. It is absolutely true. When
I agree.
When the Lord put that in my mind, I'm like, no, I can't say that. and then he goes, well, are you anxious about that?
Stop it.
Let me think about this. And like, it is true. It's true. It's true. It's true. It's hard, but it's true.
Yeah.
And the reason why the nuance here that Nigel just mentioned about, like, you go around a corner and you see danger or something happens that the other night, I'll share this example. The other night, I woke up to Sarah like kind of stumbling around. I heard a lot of noises, and we have a newborn son named Luke who's 5 months old, and it's pitch black in the room, and I heard something fall over, and I woke up and I said, Sarah, is everything okay? And she goes, get to Luke. And anxiety.
Everything.
Like, dah. She said, get to Luke. She said it twice. And we have a monitor of, that's in his room, and the sound comes into our room when we're sleeping. And so I jump up out of bed, and I fly down the hall and into his room, and it takes me about 35 minutes to get there. So it feels. It took me about 8 seconds, but in that 8 seconds, 35 minutes worth of thoughts went through my head. And the first one was, oh no, what's wrong? And anxiety kicked in. You could call it anxiety. That's not what I'm calling it, but that's what we feel.
Yeah.
This like moment. And
there's panic, there's adrenaline.
Adrenaline, panic. I just woke up. Which
evaluation. You're trying to assess the situation.
I'm trying to remember which one's Luke.
Right.
And so I go to the right room, and so I'm running down the hall, and our hall's like, I don't know, 15 feet long. And in that 15 feet, I go, oh no, what's happening? What's going on? I got to get there. Is he okay? And then 8 feet into it, I'm going, Lord, I trust you with this. This is going to be, you're in charge. I was asleep, but you weren't. I'm not with him, but you are. These are the things that are going through my head. Yeah. And as I'm running down the hallway to get into Luke's room, and I'm like, Lord, I trust you. And the Lord just put his hand on me. And that, because I'm giving it to him. I'm like, it's you. I trust you with all of it, whatever it is. And that kind of, that initial reaction went away. And I run into his room, and I open up the gate, and I go in there. It's dark in there too, and I put my face down. He's in a crib, and I put my face down so I'm like this far from him, and let my eyes adjust, and I just see this little face, eyes wide open, smiling as big as he can, and I'm like looking, I'm like, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? And he's just smiling at me, but by the time I got there, I was like, Lord, I've given this to you, and that's why I felt like 35 minutes went by, but it was 8 seconds, and then Sarah, comes in behind me. And I said, he's good, he's smiling. She goes, he's smiling. I said, yeah. And I pick him up and hand him to him. He's laughing and everything's fine. He was coughing, and that's what kind of got the whole thing. And he had been sick. So then I went back to my room, no anxiety, but my heart's still pounding.
Yeah.
My pulse is still racing.
Yeah.
I'm not sleeping.
Yeah.
But I had in that span of 8 seconds, by God's grace, I don't do it that well every time. I recognized what was happening. I gave it over to the Lord. The Lord gave me peace, and then I was able to respond to that. So when we say faith is the evidence of things not seen, anxieties is the evidence of things not surrendered, what that means is when we have that initial whatever is going to happen, this danger is in front of us, we have to take that fear or that anxiety that I don't know what's going to happen, and so I'm anxious, and we have to give it to the Lord. We have to give that to the Lord. And we see Jesus doing this in the garden. There's some similarities with that. There's a stress. There's a, I don't like this. And what is Jesus' response? I'm giving this to you. Not my will, but your will be done. It's all you. And then we'll notice after that, Jesus is the calmest one in every scene the whole way through from there on. But it's what we do with that. So if there's things in our lives that we are anxious about, there's this habitual kind of anxiety. And I understand that there's anxiety because of an activity in a moment or a thing or a reaction. And there's anxiety because of a spiritual oppression. There's anxiety for all kinds of different reasons that we struggle with it. I know that. I've been there. It still applies. We have to take those anxieties, give them to the Lord, and then leave them with him. And when we do that, it doesn't say, I don't care what you do, Lord. That's not what we're saying. It's not saying, I sign off and I'm happy with any horrible thing. That's not what it is. It's my trust in the Lord is complete. And we go down that trail. It's not saying I trust he's going to do what I want. It's not saying I trust that he's going to do what I like and what I think.
You're halfway down the hallway.
You're halfway down the hallway.
And you're not going, I'm okay because I know that you're going to keep Luke safe.
Yeah, I had no idea.
That's not what you did.
That's correct.
It was, I trust you no matter what. I'm giving this over to you no matter what.
Yep. And it was a very strong feeling of I have no control. And going, Lord, you do. You have the control. Yeah. You're the one with the control. And so in every situation we're in, we're saying, I relinquish all control because or I guess rights to it and thinking that I can do that. And I do trust you, Lord, with whatever you decide as the almighty, all-knowing, all-powerful, ever-present God with whatever my situation is. And if we honestly trust him with that, the anxiety will leave. We may still have grief. We may still have sorrow. Those are not the same as anxiety. And you go, well, Kyle, are you saying that you've reached this level to where there's nothing that you are anxious about? You would laugh at me if you knew the dumb things that I'm anxious about. Absolutely, I'm not saying that. There's all sorts of things that I should have no anxiety about. There's some big things like, you should be anxious about that, Kyle, and I'm not. And then there's little things like, I'm so worried that what happens if this drink spills on the carpet because this carpet has eternal value and I haven't given this carpet up over to the Lord. Kyle, you're a moron. No, I'm not saying that I have conquered all anxiety. No. But I am saying that where I'm anxious, that is a window into something that I have not surrendered over to the Lord. True statement. True statement.
We want to differentiate between that automatic physical reaction.
I think most of us get that.
We get that. And then what you do with it. And that's really the choice.
Because the problem comes when we have that initial reaction. It could be momentary. And we say, well, that wasn't my fault. And what it leads to is okay. Like God wants me to be thinking about this all the time, and He wants you to give it over to Him. And and when we hold on to that forever, you got to call it what it is. And I know that that's a strong statement, but I've been there, and it lines up with truth. It just does. It just does.
When you are being anxious, you're not trusting the Lord with it. You're trying to grab hold of control, and that's what you're going to. You don't like the way it's going. You don't want it to go the way that it's going. You're panicking, and you're thinking to yourself, if I can just grab more of this, if I can get my hands on this, then it's going to go the way that I want, and then I'm not going to feel the way that I feel right now.
Yeah, there's also a sense when we with that anxiety, when there's the unknown. If I just know where God's going with this, I don't even need to have control. That's a lot of it. But well, okay, it's not that it's a control thing. It's that I just need to know so that I'm prepared. That's control.
That's control.
And then I can agree with that. Or Lord, just tell me what's going to happen, and then I can prepare myself. No, He's going to prepare you. What He asks of you is not to figure it out, do what you're supposed to do, get it all right. He's asking you to trust Him. Trust Him. That's what He's asking you to do. And we can do that. We can do that. Sometimes we have to keep bringing it back to Him and laying it at His feet, but we can do it. We can do it. And that's a big deal. It really is a big deal.
Can you trust the Lord with your kids? Can you trust the Lord with your work and your marriage that's having a hard time and any number of things? What are the things that you are holding on to and that you just don't want to give up? because your identity is tied to it and you want it to go a certain way. And if that doesn't happen, you feel insecure. What the Bible is telling us is that God loves us and he cares for us and he has good things for us. And so when we surrender those things to him, our soul, our spirit is safe.
It's true, man.
All the stuff in this life, good things, kids, good things, marriage, good things, having a great job and being able to use the gifts that God has given you. All of those are good things. To having a church and having the church look good and be going in the right direction and being obedient and all the things that we want. All these things can be good, but if we're holding on to them, if our identity is connected to those, we haven't surrendered it to the Lord. And so the big question for you is, are you willing, the way David is, to say to him, God, search me, know my heart, and
try me, put me in
try me, like
where these things are going to come
let's
out.
bring all of this out. Let's bring all of these things out.
Yeah.
So then the next piece of this is, and see if there be any grievous way in me. And so that goes back to conviction. I think we've talked a little bit along those lines where he's asking to be convicted. He's asking for a revealing to show, to bring into the light all these things that he's holding, his heart is holding on to and doesn't want to surrender.
Yeah, this idea of the word grievous is this idea of habitually wicked, offensive to the God, something that hurts him. And that's sometimes hard to wrap our heads around. Like, we can affect God. Yeah, we can grieve him. We can do things where that's hurtful to him. It doesn't diminish him. It doesn't.
No, not at all.
Don't go that way with it. But but the relationship, it has effect in that sense. So he's saying, is there anything in me that is hurtful? Show me, convict me of it. When was the last time we asked God to convict us? Some of us would say, well, yeah, it's happened recently, but not a lot of us have asked God.
I'm so excited about it tonight. Tonight's conviction night.
Tonight is conviction night.
I'm doing it. That's I haven't heard that in a long time. Or ever. I don't think I've ever heard that.
I've never heard it. Yeah. But that's what he's asking.
That's not a common one.
That's not a night that I want to be a part of. Really. But I do. At the end of the day, we do, because we want God to show us so that he can remove it, so we can lay that down and remove it. And remember, he's coming right out of these verses where he's saying, I hate those who are against you. I loathe them. I want nothing to do with these people who are against you and rise up against you. Into that he goes, I don't want to be them. I don't want to be them. And I know I have it in me. So, Lord, reveal to me what it is that's bubbling up or that I've got harbored in there, because I don't want that. I don't want that to come between us. So he's asking for that. In essence, take the log out of my eye, which is what Nigel was talking about earlier on when we were going through this. So he's asking to be, first, show me what's in me, put me in these spots where it'll bubble up, convict me, and then he moves on to the third thing that we talked about.
Yeah, and he says, and lead me in the way everlasting. And so David wants to be guided, to be led by the Lord. He doesn't want to go his own way. And he recognizes, hey, even if I know the way, it's not going to work if I do it myself.
Yep.
I need to be led. I need you to lead me in your way. This is something that is supernatural. That's yours. If it goes me leading myself, I'm going to go the natural way. And I'm going to go the opposite of the way that you want to go. If I go my way, it's not search me and know me. It's not bring out all my sin into the light so that everybody can see it. That's not the way I go.
Yeah, no.
But the way that is everlasting, that will last forever, that leads to eternal life, is this way, where God brings our sins out into the open. He sees them exactly what they are, but then he forgives us of them.
Yeah.
You can't get forgiveness if you're hiding your stuff.
Well,
if you're holding it back.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about when it comes to the conviction, which is the sort of the first part of that, is he doesn't bring that conviction to us so that we feel horrible and worthless and we just have this guilt and weight on us. He does it as because revealing that to us is the first step in reconciliation, knowing that we need to be reconciled.
Yeah.
And from that comes this idea of, I know I need to be led. and he's the one to lead me because he's the one that's holy and I'm the one that's not, and he's the one that paid the price and I'm the one that owed the debt, and so he leads us in that and from that, and that's a big deal because David comes to where he lays it all out there, and he says, I need you to lead me, knowing that he's gonna go places that he wouldn't normally choose to go. And he's going to have to do things that he wouldn't normally on his own choose to do. And that's all part of the surrender, saying, yeah, I trust you and your decisions. Yeah. Therefore, I'm not anxious about what tomorrow holds because you're there and you're going to lead me into it. And if it's places that I wouldn't choose to do now, great. That's why I'm following you and not me. Yeah. And I got to go do things that I wouldn't normally do. Great. That's why I'm following you and not me. And that's what we're signing up for. But so often, man, whenever we find ourselves in a spot that we wouldn't have chosen to go, or we hit this plateau in our spiritual walk where we find ourselves comfortable, we're able to, we kind of look around and say, well, the view is good enough right here. I don't need to.
We made it pretty far.
We're pretty far. I mean, look how far we're farther than those people.
We're farther than them. And
remember when we were doing this? Remember that?
That was pretty bad.
So this is pretty good. Yep. And meanwhile, we haven't realized yet that we're on a foothill. We haven't even reached the mountain yet. That he really wants to take us up to show us an amazing view and lead us in places that are tough to get to. So that's all part of the lead me side of it. Just it's surrender. It's total surrender. It starts with surrender. We get there through surrender, and it's a constant, unending action that we have to participate in.
This last piece is important because it's not I search myself and I need to find out my own heart and I need to figure out my own things and I need to get the self-help books so that I can stop being anxious. And if I can get this thing and that thing and do these things, and then if I try hard enough, then I won't have these evil ways inside me, and so it won't be like all those other people that I don't like and all of these things, and then I will lead myself in the way everlasting. That's not what he's saying.
Nope.
What he's saying in all of this is that God leads the entire thing.
You search me. You know my heart.
Absolutely.
You try me and know my thoughts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't need to try harder. You need to trust more. That's
right.
Everything
trust more,
of what we're getting to. And so if you trust the Lord and you trust that he has good things on the other side of these, on the other side of the mountain, let's say, then you're going to do what David does here. And you're going to ask the Lord to do exactly what David does. We've got more to talk about this on Sunday. It's going to come up. It happens to be a central theme that comes up a lot, so we're going to talk about it a lot. So this Sunday, we're going to be talking about it, and that's going to propel us into the next sermon series that we're going to be doing on worship. And so once again, worship, it's going to be a similar thing. It's not going to be, I got to worship, so I got to try hard, and I got to do this, and I got to wrestle my stuff so that I can worship God the way he wants to be worshiped. It's how is the Lord leading us into worshiping him. And so that's where we're headed. We hope you guys stick with us and that the Lord blesses you through the next stuff that we're doing.
It's going to be good.
Thanks. We'll see you guys next time.